I have worked with students from all of the colleges changed his name several times since I came here in 1962. It's now the College of Design, Construction, and Planning. Back in the 1970s, when Blair Reeves, who began the preservation program at college, I'm talking about doing a joint seminar between law students and graduate architectural students. And we did that. And in fact, the project that the students did that first year was a historic preservation of ordinance for the city of Gainesville. There was no such ordinance out of that. And the students did a brilliant job and then lobbied it through the city commission. And it's the same basic ordinance that's still in effect in Gainesville today. So that relationship between law students and architectural students who are interested in historic preservation has continued over the years, almost 50 years. And I always found that the architectural students brought insights that law students and I know had. So it's very exciting collaboration. And today we're going to hear from students about the vision for downtown Gainesville. And I'm going to ask Claire Larkin to introduce Linda Stevenson and the students. You heard Claire as the first speaker in this series. I was at Shannon at the time, so I didn't get to hear her. But Claire took over as director of the Historic Preservation Programs just about a year ago, and has been a breath of fresh air. And with that, I'm going to ask Claire to take over.
Good morning. It's great to see you all again. I'm Claire Larkin, the director of the Historic Preservation Program, and I'm an assistant professor in the Urban Planning Program at UF. I'd like to thank Roy for inviting us here this semester for leading the topics on new urbanism, which I hope all of you have attended. I know I've recognized some faces from my introduction to the topic. I'd like to also say that Roy has just been an amazing supporter of our program, our students, our projects, what we do. We share a common history of being from West Tennessee, and we share a common love for policy and planning and preservation, history, and activism. You know, the thing about historic preservation is that it's never done, right? So you can preserve a building and you still have to come back and maintain it and then readdress how it's relevant for the future. That's why we call it stewardship. So thank you, Roy, for all of your support and great ideas that the program will keep working on. So I want to just say that you've learned a lot about new urbanism this semester, and what I'd like to do through this presentation is think about the positive characteristics of new urbanism that you've learned about, and how we can apply that to our downtown, which is the original urbanism that Jerry spoke about. So we've got density, we've got the opportunity to, you know, address pedestrianism, bike safety, 24-hour living and activity. We've got historic buildings. We have the opportunity for arts and culture for people of all ages and all interests, residents and visitors. So this class really started out with us recognizing downtown Gainesville really needs help. You know, we've got a lot that we need down there. And how can we start to recognize that and advocate for that? This is not a fully developed preservation or revitalization plan because it is really complicated. And if you've been to downtown recently, you know there's a lot of activity happening on its perimeters and a lot of activity happening inside of downtown. So we have to think carefully about how all of this works together. So we really consider this a preliminary assessment and recommendations. We're asking for your feedback, your ideas, your thoughts about what's meaningful and important, what you would like to see downtown. And then we'll be taking this and submitting it to the city, working with the city historic preservation officer, Kathleen Kaufman, and with Jay Reeves, chair of the local historic preservation board. And so hopefully we can take this and then develop recommendations for really getting this project up and moving by the city. So with that, I'd like to introduce the team, Dr. Stevenson, who is faculty in our program and led this course, and she will introduce the students as they get up and give you the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today and for giving us this opportunity to share the work of students. So this course began with a conversation with Kathleen Kaufman of the city regarding her concern about some changes in the zoning code that is allowing some very tall buildings potentially to go into the downtown area in the future. Downtown has this really beautiful set of heritage assets that we'd like to see preserved and revitalized for new use. The course consisted of a number of field trips. We met with representatives from city government, with the private business community. We invited Victor Dover and Dover Cole, who's a renowned urban planner nationally, who came to work with the students in a workshop session. So it was a very, very kind of experience. So today we've got 4 of the graduate students that worked on the project. And in the course of the presentation, they'll introduce themselves to you personally. So with that, I want to turn the program over to them, and the clerk is right here for you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we are.
Real close to the mics. Hold them,
Oh,
yeah, there.
I thought you said.
Yes, yes, yes.
Forgive me if I'm making mistakes, please, I'm not familiar with this. Well, we are developing a historic preservation plan for the downtown district, as Dr. Stevenson just laid out for us. And this is what we've come up with so far, and we'd like to share our vision for the future for downtown Gainesville. Okay, to start, our graduate team comprises talented and dedicated UF Historic Preservation faculty and graduate students from various disciplines. This team is led by Historic Preservation Program faculty member Dr. Stevenson and Dr. Larkin, Director of the Historic Preservation Program. Our team includes our graduate students, Alachua from the Historic Preservation MHP, who is not with us today, most of you in class. I'm so sorry, I don't have anything. My name is Lisa. I'm in the anthropology graduate program. I'm a historical archaeologist. And I very much enjoy learning more about cultural resource management through this class with this project. Outside of the dirt, essentially. So, yeah.
I'm Greg Secretary. I'm in the PhD program for historic preservation. I've been there for about a couple of years and learned about downtown Gainesville and all the preservation efforts throughout Florida, and today we focus on Gainesville.
My name is Katie Picasso. I have a background in sustainability and built environment, and I'm currently a master's student studying urban regional planning with a specialty in preservation.
My name is Sebastian. I'm an urban designer of that because that was, what I did for my bachelor's. It's a bit different from planning, but pretty similar, except that I also look at, the built environment policy. Right now, I'm doing my master's in urban and regional planning, and it's my first, so I'm very happy to be here.
And then we have Antia Graham. She is an MA student in the Historic Preservation Program. She is also not with us today, presumably because she is in class. So from there, we would like to extend our acknowledgement and thanks to the wonderful Gainesville community and for all the future efforts they will invest in recreating our downtown Gainesville area as the cultural, social, and economic resource that we will all benefit from. Further still, we want to thank the individuals who share their special talents and expertise in historic preservation, urban design, and planning, and of course, community branding, providing us with the guidance we need to create this holistic preservation plan that we will be building onto as we go. Kathleen Hoffman, the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Gainesville, Julie Reeves, RA Architect and Chair for the Gainesville Historic Preservation Board, Victor Dover of FAICP through Dover Cole and Partners, and Laura Morse, Principal Researcher for Brand Messaging for DRNT Drinking. And an additional thank you goes to James Smith, Senior Associate of Colleagues, Overton and Eli Collins of Depot Park. And there. Just a quick overview of our table of contents. As you can see, we'll be breaking this presentation into two sections, the past and present, which includes the project introduction and historical context of the downtown Gainesville area and the existing conditions and data. This section will be followed by the immediate future, which will speak to the vision and goals, recommendations, and the next steps we'd like to take.
So let's, sort of explore exactly why we wanted to tackle this project. The first really big perspective is that we want to maintain downtown's historic character. I think everyone here understands that downtown has a beautiful architectural history, but it also has a cultural one. We want to reinvigorate downtown's energy. So if you look at a map, and really if you've seen the pattern of development in Gainesville, there's really been a lot of new construction, especially, for example, Celebration Point. But we've also seen a lot of construction along Midtown, close to the University of Florida, but downtown's energy is a little different. And we really wanted to find a plan for the future. We enjoyed research like that. Well, sorry, thank you. That when we were doing a lot of the research for downtown, we found multiple plans going all the way back to 1963. But every decade, it seems like there was a new downtown redevelopment plan. The most recent being the 2022 one, but it only focuses really on the economy. So we think that there might be a better plan for downtown. Our study area was really an amalgamation of most of these plans. They all have different study areas, but I think we really sort of found a great area that incorporated some of the areas that were studied back in the 1980s. That they have in a site plan, meaning that they had someone go out and sort of do a historical and architectural deep dive. But it also includes a new section, which was in a plan for the power district, but it didn't really go anywhere. But we think that this has become a really good area for downtown development, so adding into the focus. So now we get into the historical context of Gainesville overall.
So we're first going to start with the railroad era. And so the railroad era was extremely significant in Gainesville's history. And so at the start of this, farming was already well established in Gainesville, but the railroad allowed for the exportation of resources, which really helped for Gainesville to become a sort of hub. And so the first major industry in Gainesville was the railroad industry, and also restricted in major economic gains of the region. The first train to open was the Florida Railroad, and this opened on February 1st of 1859, and it ran from Fernandina to Cedar Key. And this really helped to really establish Gainesville. It helped influence people to move to the city, and it also, you can see that in the development patterns with the downtown.
During the Civil War Reconstruction in the rest of this period, 1860, Alachua County had roughly 8,000 inhabitants. Gainesville, its central city, had 232 residents. During the Civil War, Gainesville was a significant Confederate station and had two significant battles take place. One of which was the Battle of Gainesville, which took place August 17, 1864. This was primarily an economic move because the war was interrupting prominent industries in the area. During the Reconstruction period, 1865 to 1877, this period brought martial law, federal rule, with Gainesville acting as a very strong Republican stronghold. The immigration of freedmen and women who were previously enslaved, occupational restructuring, and of course, economic prosperity. By the end of Reconstruction, Alachua County had a population of over 18,000, while Gainesville held 1,400 residents of that 18,000. It was a mercantile center for cotton and vegetable crops, and then by 1880, Gainesville's population was pretty roughly split between both Black and white individuals. Following construction, a large amount of the Black population immigrated out with the first Great Migration. There were also, two major fires in the 1880s that kind of led Gainesville to rebuild using red brick instead of wood, which I believe is a very common. And during this period, the city actually built a very strong, imposing red brick courthouse. It kind of acted as a signifier of the city transitioning from a town to a city-state. During the next 25 years, Alachua County continued to prosper, adding 2 more railroads over railroad stops. It flourished under the secure economic base of the citrus and phosphate industries, which gave Alachua an era of the progressive era industry characteristic of the New South, which of course impacted Gainesville. Gainesville's population increased to 3,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in the state of Florida. During this period of growth, the city developed socially and culturally essential civic institutions, and of course these economic characteristics of growth. So by the later 1800s, early 1900s, these culturally significant characteristics included an opera house, it included paved streets, it included city water, and of course telephones and electric lights. Additionally, prominent traders in the area, such as Dutton, Miller, and Baird, built beautiful homes near the downtown area of along the southeast and along the down in this University Avenue, kind of attracting further development and further increase in population. During the Depression towards to World War II, during this period, Gainesville faced both challenges, but showed itself as extremely resilient. Despite its difficulties, Gainesville was able to weather these economic and cultural stoppages that kind of impacted literally everything. Although the collapse of the land boom during this time affected the nation, Gainesville was not as severely affected because of its large agricultural base, economic base. In fact, we were able to stay afloat as agriculture and other trades kind of thrived, partially due to the train industry. The University of Florida as well also played a key role in stabilizing the economy by providing education and employment opportunities. World War II also had an unexpected positive effect on the economy because of the war boom and the industry related to the war. But also through property rentals and the establishment of the Alachua military air base and production of military supplies. This increased alongside building construction and military training programs that were provided by the University of Florida.
And then we have post-war, World War II to the present. Lots of stuff happened in this era, especially considering that this was really a boom time for Gainesville. The growth and expansion of the University of Florida is really one of the biggest sort of drivers of this growth, especially after the GI Bill of World War II. It really increased attendance, and so increased attendance, increased services, increased growth. It also brought a flurry of new development northwest, so basically going forward from downtown. And it brought new businesses into that really catered to students. One of the books that I read for research for this class also indicated that there was a boom for women's businesses. So before the GI Bill, really only men going to this university, but once the GI Bill after World War II, many women decided to go to the University of Florida. So many businesses that catered to women opened up downtown. Students would basically become the center of Gainesville, and it really has still today. Most of the development that has happened has really been students and catering to students, and that's why we see sort of a development in Midtown. There were a lot of civil rights protests in downtown. It's sort of one of the main characteristics from the 1960s. There was a construction of many new civic spaces and institutions in downtown and in around Gainesville. Some of this includes the City Hall complex in the 1960s, the courthouse and the admin building for the county in the 1960s as well. Santa Fe College was established in the 1970s. The University Bell Tower and classrooms were built in the 1950s. But the classrooms obviously continued construction all the way probably to the 1990s, and now we're seeing a new move of construction on campus. Mill Harbor State Park was designated in the 1970s. State Hippodrome's theater was dedicated in the 1970s. It was restored first and dedicated by the state as a state theater. And we have Bellevue Plaza also being established in the 1960s. We also see development now, much greater development of commercial properties in the 1990s and 2000s. We see a lot of development along Archer Road, especially Butler Plaza and all those many different developments. We also see some downtown revitalization efforts, but they're always, like I said, we saw through all the plans, not always implemented. Now we get into some of the existing challenges and conditions that we saw when we went on some of our sites. First of all, obviously, like I said, one of our main pillars was obviously trying to get the historical significance of downtown, and we think that there's a few. First of all, obviously, civil rights. There were a lot of protests in the 1960s, especially in the church, that were very instrumental in civil rights movement in Gainesville. It's also an economic hub. Gainesville, obviously being the center where the University of Florida is, it obviously has students that really influence the culture. It has natural beauty of Mill Harbor. It was designated, there's many state parks here that were designated by Pines Prairie down south. It has cultural diversity, obviously students from all over Florida, really all over the nation and the world. Really influence that diverse culture between not only students but then those who stay here and that's what it is. We have historic architecture. It's not only downtown we have local buildings, we also have many historic districts around downtown. So there's this real big influence of historical architecture all around town. And then environmental conservation, like I said, there's a lot of natural beauty, and over the years, there's been a lot of conservation of that very special areas in this part of Florida.
Across time and space, water always wins. We've heard a lot about climate change, temperatures raising 1 degree, water going 1 degree, inch up. But the peninsula of Florida actually originated on was back traveled across the ocean, crashed into the north, southeast, and created the Appalachian Mountains. The peninsula that we're on, has, the water level has raised 300 feet or over the past 15,000 years. And we can see that, climate change is going to continue to happen, water is going to continue to rise, and there's going to be a continued, population migration. And, hopefully that'll be in the direction of Gainesville. So although Gainesville right now is kind of the sleepy town in the middle of Florida, eventually it's going to increase and densify and become maybe the new Miami, sometime. Maybe that's not the
So another challenge that we looked at was challenges facing the built urban environment. And so when looking at the image on the left, you can see that it is a historic building, it was historically designated. And as you can see, the arrow pointing down to the image of it today, you can see that it's been preserved, it's still standing, it's been edited, but it's still in very good historical context. And then we're looking at the image on the right, you can see that that is a building that was not historically designated, and as you can see, the result is that that building is no longer with us. And so this is really important for the designation of buildings. They allow for the buildings to withstand this time, and these are not being demolished in vision.
Now, when we look at new development, we can see that the current zoning for almost all of downtown is DT, which means downtown. And the regulations, as you can see here, they say that you can build anything 12 stories with a bonus of 14 if you meet some certain conditions. We can see that the max height is 200 feet, and in the dining room, you can see it on the top right side. This is what some buildings would look like if they were to actually meet that sort of height restriction. Now, it's possible that they can go this high. Obviously, one of the new developments is going to Hyatt, and they didn't build up to 12 stories. But if any developer comes in and maybe buys one of the large parking lots, it's possible that they may build all the way to 12 stories. And we've seen some buildings in Gainesville, especially near the university, that have met their thresholds and really built all the way to the top.
From the economic perspective, we can see in the top left corner how much Gainesville has changed and how much retail itself has changed, from the horse and buggy area to the car to the strip malls that were developed to the north of Gainesville, which caused the businesses to start to flee downtown. And then we went to the regional mall concept, where people left the strip mall and went to the regional mall. And after that, we have the big box. So right now we can see that Oak Mall is kind of in decline, and the big box we're starting to rise. Butler Plaza and Celebration Point, example. And big boxes are starting to fail. With COVID, we came to the door-to-door box. And question is, what's next?
Press
Press the one to the right. There.
No. Okay. So, on big picture,
Or say vision goals first.
vision goals, chapter 4. Back on track. Although the Gainesville was always, the downtown has always been the heart of Gainesville, although the economic centers may have shifted. It's still the center of transportation, it's the center of government. It really is the beating heart of Gainesville. But it's not beating very strong right now. It needs more development, it needs more work with play activity. Even though Gainesville has dispersed to a wider area, we can see that the projects that the city has undertaken the depot park for 60 million. Boulder Springs is one that's up and coming. And we've got the Keaton Blue, here. The Hawthorne Trail, as well as Celebration Point Trails. These are all significant investments that the city has made. And they really still all focus on the downtown. They originate from downtown, primarily from Depot Park.
The built environment, for the next three slides, we sort of based our vision on three big goals. The first one is sort of the built environment, and first of all, we want to preserve the history that's still there, that's still standing. As you saw in the previous slide, some of the buildings have not made it all the way till now. And the ones that are there, some of them are in best shape. So we think that there's a need to preserve our history. The second is really planning for future development. So while we preserve these buildings that are already there, we also need to make sure that they're compatible with the existing buildings through some type of design standards, some type of way to make sure that they're all compatible and creating the next standard. And the third is having sufficient means of transportation. Right now, most of downtown is serviced by one bus line and car infrastructure. We having to drive there. We think that there might be different modes of transportation within how we can have transponding. Especially what Greg said, that there are sort of these trails that are leading from downtown.
Okay. And one of these things that we want to focus on is, of course, the economic aspects of the downtown district. So investing in small businesses, creating a hub for small businesses, like Greg said earlier, and increasing engagement with the arts and centering around local artists to engage with the downtown area and attract new communities. And of course, we want to make sure that we have diverse business types. We want to ensure that our activities are being leveraged effectively to encourage community involvement. We want to rely on markets that we already have, like the audience market or the annual art showcase, and build those network nodes that we can connect to local businesses that are already there, but also incentivize the creation of new business activity. So going into the social and cultural, we want to also encourage the connection to our historical roots. So engage with the train industry, develop a historic law, rely on and engage with our musical history. We do have several music halls downtown, and of course, when we get further into it, we're going to be speaking about a major project that we'd like to focus on. We want to make sure that we're incorporating civic institutions and creating civic centers and hopefully working with the local government to maybe create some form of sponsorship or develop events. We want to encourage and create more tax incentives that can reach out to local community members, connect further with the commerce and the government infrastructures that we have in place, and ensure that the downtown district is being self-efficient and also having back out into the community. Of course, we would be also relying on forms of volunteer labor through different programs. There's something called the Main Street program that encourages community members to contribute their time, effort, and labor to upkeep for the main streets of these areas that operate as kind of the central area for the downtown district. We want to encourage more community events, so engaging and reaching out to the local population, which can obviously serve as a catalyst for economic growth because people will be attracted to not only the activities and events that are happening in downtown, but also participate in the local businesses, either for food or if there's a bookstore buying books. If there's a little tchotchke store, you can go and get knickknacks, or remember the day you had outside with your family and friends. Of course, we want to leverage our current events that do take place, like I said earlier, so the annual art showcase, the audience market, the local market and event spaces such as the Woolly and UC. We would work closely with them to increase engagement with the downtown district outside of their guidelines, essentially. And to do this, we would also go and take surveys local businesses to see what they need and people who are downtown to see what they want to see. When they are downtown, it's not just hotels and coffee, it could be other things. And then of course we would rely on and operationalize our volunteers along with, whoever else is a part of the program essentially. So sliding into recommendations.
This is really the imaginative part of our project. We talked about our challenges, we talked about our goals, but I think this is really when we start talking about some of the concrete stuff that we can do for downtown. So we really, once we saw everything, we were halfway, midpoint in our class, and we really wanted to think about what downtown can be. And we really looked at all the history of downtown. We really thought that writing your own history of downtown was really, and really writing your own story was kind of a cool tagline and a great way of explaining what downtown has always been. Here we see a picture of the 1950s, and there are some businesses here that don't exist anymore. However, some of the buildings do. And we think that that's amazing that throughout time, it will always change, everything will always change. The buildings might still be there, but there are always new stories being done in these buildings. So while we won't change the actual infrastructure, the stories do. And I think that that's a great, great aspect of downtown. So here we can see some of the historic neighborhoods that are designated right now. So they do go through the historical preservation board, and any new building or any modifications to some of these buildings go through a architectural board. We can see that it basically creates almost like a donut hole of where downtown currently is with all these historic districts. Here was our study area superimposed on. And we think that there's really a possibility of effect right here in that donut hole. It includes part of the Spring Hill neighborhood, part of the Borders neighborhood, and really where most of the plans have dedicated or have designated this like the historic area, where most of the old historic buildings are. And the first aspect of really our recommendations is having a master. This master plan would include historic district standards, so it would be the design standards protecting our old buildings, an economic element, a social cultural element, and a pathways connection. So we will get into some of the details of the historical district standards, but it's the economic.
It's essentially what I stated earlier, but we collaborate on a more master plan. So completing the surveys, engaging with the Main Street program, developing taglines and marketing materials that we're going to be going over a little bit, and making sure that the local businesses are having their needs met, while we're also meeting the needs of the actual downtown district itself, and making sure that we can get it essentially designated as a historical district. We don't want to ignore the community and their needs, but we also want to make sure that we're having these standards put in place that keep the downtown area safe from overdevelopment, while also balancing and finding that kind of reconciliation for what every population needs as it goes through time, essentially, because the needs are going to shift as populations shift.
So really, this is the vision. This is the argument that changes over time, but really it's the vision of the community now, what they want.
So looking at historic renovation, we looked at our designated historic district, and we're also proposing that there is an architectural review board for this area. And so the architectural review board would make it, if there was any changes that need to be administered, it would have to be approved first. So this would make sure that materials aren't being outsourced and looking at sort of kind of like the Hyatt. And it will just to really preserve the overall historic character of this downtown area.
So the guidelines, and they fall back on the Secretary of the Interior standards, which is a national standard for preservation development. You can incorporate new ideas into old buildings, as still in the show. I think there's a lot of opportunities downtown for this type of experience.
An example of some of these design standards could be, for example, signage. Signage is very important downtown, especially when we look at downtowns from the early to the 1950s. They really create something that maybe the architecture doesn't. Obviously, it's going to change over time. For example, one of our team members said that maybe the inclusion of neon, which some buildings, for example, for the theater has some neon, sort of showing at night that this is exactly what's happening in downtown today. That there could be some standards for some of these signs to include neon. So it could be the regulation of having letters, how bright the neon sign when it can operate, what type of fonts, especially if you want to have it match some of the railroad buildings, what specific font that they can use. And then how does that sign be organized, not only with the facade, but also with the existing buildings around, or maybe new buildings that want to include. We also have design standards for green and public spaces. So we don't only want to think about what is being built by architects, but also what's being done by architects. And we think that by having a plan in this, having a vision for what we want for our green spaces that is not only constructed by the development, but also by existing parks, we can really sort of increase the sort of the design and usability of some of these green spaces. One of our team members really emphasized that the water features within our parks. Most of the water features, especially right now, are not in use. I guess maybe the city hall, if anyone visited city hall recently, they have fountains right up in front of it, are not in use right now. So we think that having more water features in our green spaces could be enhanced that space.
Just a quick note on the last slide, the water features of the monuments and sculptures can also act as pieces of historical memorial. And CMO made an excellent point in regards to the water features that she was interested in maybe incorporating how they can address not only our train history or our citrus history or our phosphate history, but also our history of economic reliance on enslaved populations transitioning into a more harmonious racial relationship or hunting and as the growth that we've experienced as a southern city. And I'm not entirely sure where that water feature is from, but that would be kind of an example that she found online that's very popular.
So there's a lot of open space, a lot of open opportunities downtown for space for parks and fountains. One idea that we have is right now we have the Sweetwater Park over on the east side. We have Depot Park on the south. We have Bolivia Park, literally kind of right in the center across from City Hall. And of course, the major park in the bunch. And we'd like to maybe propose an idea of connecting all those spaces so that people can park in the parking garage, enter into the downtown, nice environment, walk to the park, get on their bikes, ride through downtown to Depot Park. They can go all the way out to Hawthorne if they so decide. There's also a lot of different types of pathways that Victor Gover talked to us about as far as being next to the street, protecting the pedestrians and bikes and a smaller alleyway, which we kind of have going down to Depot Park. That's not a vehicular pathway, that would just be pedestrians and possibly bikes. Next slide. Oh, and then also this new path from the Hippodrome down to Depot Park would allow for infill development, which right now there is not much of them.
It's also important to see that we do have one bus station on the south side of the different community that is fully connected right now. So having that transportation aspect for downtown would be creating a connection between the town and, the bus station.
It's just kind of enlargement of the area. Get the diagram on the top right. We can see the bus station, there was little blue buses, and then Depot Park in yellow, and then some type of infill development of various types with maybe retail, businesses on the bottom, housing on the top. And it really just connects that central spine to Depot Park downtown, and then further out to the bus station. And the rest of downtown. It would be a catalytic project. It was for development in the downtown area.
Going further into this downtown area as a social and cultural hub, we want to make sure that the space is open for every generation and diverse populations. So maintaining the essence and historical spirit of the space, creating guidelines that undergird the historical narrative while supporting the different needs and expectations of modern creators and artists. So the chefs, the musicians, painters, sculptors, etc. Every form of creation is a form of art in some way. And we want to make sure that we're using that to engage with everybody. So in regards to talking about more businesses, we want to look at the event spaces, music halls, so performers and performances. Places like the Hippodrome, the High Diner, the Atlantic, the Woody, you see, Harry's, Marble Barbecue, Lady Ginger, all of these businesses that are operating out of these historic spaces and places that are reaching community members that maybe don't often have the opportunity to engage with the downtown district as much as they would like to. So we can formulate a plan that engages with the arts and the businesses and the foods, food producers and the street artists and muralists. We can reach those communities and encourage a relationship with the historic component of the downtown area.
I think another really good aspect that we sort of found out when we were doing some of the things for downtown, we really figured out that, well, I think everyone's figured out, most students and professors have really figured out that the University of Florida is a STEM school. There really aren't that many art spaces dedicated to students, to have galleries, to sort of have performance spaces. So we think downtown, especially at our district plan was being implemented at a lot of cultural and significant art buildings. Right now, we went to a tour a few weeks ago of a recording studio and performance area. And we thought that was really cool, but the rest of the downtown was sort of missing that despite having some of those great assets that could sort of open up art students coming into downtown and sort of provide this great atmosphere. So most of those plans that we also talked about before, they have no ownership. Unfortunately, some of those plans fall flat because no one really takes hold of them. And we really think that there has to be one organization that really takes hold of all of the plan that you might suggest, or the plan that you're recommending. Right now, we can see that the CRA has some districts, but they don't really have it in the we think that the CRA that's already in place has a great potential of really guiding downtown to develop. Right now, their funds is that they have, when they were established back in the 70s, they capped property taxes, and anything that was built new, they would then assess those new property taxes and include it into the CRA's funds. So that can be used for redevelopment, but as we can see here, it's not the focus. So we think that the CRA would really focus on the downtown area, and it would then benefit all of the CRA. You can see it sort of goes up to Waldo and has some areas to the west and east of it. But we think that the CRA should focus on downtown because it's going to be the thing that is going to provide the most amount of funds, not only for the development in downtown, but for everything in the CRA.
And also, there's a proposal in the legislation right now for a state tax credit. That would be an additional 10% on top of the 20% that's offered by the federal government. So Main Street America, if they're governing and involved with the downtown, that would make the downtown area eligible for that extra 10%. They do a lot with economic development, oversight, and planning. They're really a great organization they're successful all across the U.S. So we talked about what's next as far as when you talk about the retail slide. I think what's next for downtown is to find the right tenant mix. And one possibility, the highest business growth right now is in the small manufacturing. They have the ability to come into existing neighborhoods or existing buildings. They would be able to afford the rent as well as the renovations and upgrades. But it's really something that's really overlooked as far as a possibility. And if this were involved with the downtown plan as an economic aspect, it would really go a long way to revitalizing the entire downtown.
You know, what I was talking about with the CRA, they can plan. But we think that there's a really good potential for community members having input in that vision plan. And we think that a downtown committee is necessary. Really, what they would do is that they would work with the CRA. They would be that architectural review board, so anything that comes before them, they have to make sure that it complies with the interior standard, but also with the city standards. And then they would be the ones guiding the downtown vision in that document. Then the CRA, they would be the ones handling the funds. They would be the ones planning the events that the downtown committee would propose, and they would be the ones maintaining all the infrastructure downtown. So there would be this like two-pronged sort of organizational structure where there are the visionaries and they're the ones actually in the ground doing all that work. But we think that it's important to have these two organizations because if there's one that's missing, there's only people doing the work on the ground, what work are they going to do? It's almost necessary to have both.
I'd like to add real quick, in terms of community guidance, we will also be working closely with stakeholders, and looking at their support. So, the University of Florida, Stanford College, maybe Shannon wants to be involved with things, but also obviously the local businesses and along with the CRA and the Street America, Main Street, program, we would hope to garner interest from just everybody in Gainesville. So keep that in mind if you have other things. I'm also covering branding in place of answering, so excuse me. Obviously having an identity is a very important component of being marketable. So in the downtown districts, if we are to make it more appealing for this historical information, we'd love to have an actual vision in mind in terms of what people think of when they have a thought about downtown Gainesville. So this is critical, and although we will be going through what is essentially a rebranding process, it is important. We brainstormed as a group and produced different logo options for consideration. None of these have been solidly, laid out. These logos were inspired by the iconic Hippodrome Theater and of course our real music history. We have the downtown Gainesville with a little sign that is supposed to look like the Hippodrome essentially. We have historic, innovative, authentic. Unfortunately, we were told by branding professionals that those words are overused, so we're going to replace those most likely. And then we have a street corner with our tower that has a G like a superhero, past preserved, future thrives, and then my personal favorite is the one in the bottom right-hand corner, right-hand corner, with the Hippodrome and the musical notes coming out of it, like a little difficult to see. But it says downtown Gainesville, historic, distinctive, timeless. I think that is powerful. And then if we want to emphasize our train history, we have our musical notes coming out of the train that says historic, innovative, authentic. Again, a little played out, but we'll replace those words when we get a chance. So from there, when we're using these kinds of branding, we would of course strategically develop, different ways to incorporate it into not just the downtown district, but throughout Gainesville. So it's in people's, minds and their forethought, and if they see it, they're like, I will live in the town back. So it's important for several reasons. It attracts investment, it develops relationships with the community, it encourages growing economic, cultural, and social. It promotes these updated images, and then we take them and we control and inherit identity. And now we have a new image of what downtown means, so like while still maintaining that historical underpinning that we all love and recognize. It promotes differentiation, it boosts tourism, we can foster civic pride and resident engagement. And it's a great tool for non-verbal, but still highly effective communication between the program, the historic downtown district, and the designation. And of course, the community. It's a notable example. Slide forward. That's very motivating. They effectively use branding to provide local recognition for the city of Oslo, which I think is interesting. I don't really think about Norway, but I do know where Oslo is. So from there, I want to transition into our next steps. Are we going to see tomorrow?
Many downtowns that we did research on had like the splash project. That first thing that gets redeveloped, that really proves that downtown needs business and that we really want redevelopment to happen. So we sat down, we started thinking, what building would be great to redevelop? What building do we think would be a great sort of showstopper? And we really thought that the Florida Theater was a great implementation of what we want. It has a combination of being a very historic building all over the railroad area, but it can have a new twist, like we were talking about before, that it can have an arts component. The Florida Theater really is a theater. It really gives itself to be a public space, not only for one art medium, but multiple art mediums. We came up with sort of this drawing of what it would look like if it was completely new, sort of removing some of the paint that they passed now to show that brick facade, improving the concrete area. You can see a picture of it here in the 1950s. And some of the pictures when it was in its heyday, here you can see some of the neon signs that we were talking about before. And we really wanted to bring back that historical character, but also make it. We also have a few suggestions, not only for the building, but also how to remember our historical acts. We have these funny statues of the Beatles, and we think that those could be great musical acts that Gainesville has had over the years. And also sort of like a walk of stars, not only for some of the musical acts we've had in Gainesville, but also maybe for some other artists, some very important people for Gainesville, so that when they visit the Florida Theater, they can reflect on the history and also the history being made today.
Another idea, kind of leaning into the train history of Gainesville, would be the creation of a train railroad museum. This could be done with a train engine indoors, so it's protected from elements. And also, we were looking at having it kind of behind glass, so that maybe as you're driving down University Avenue, you see the storefront windows. And behind that is the train, basically. So right now with University Avenue, with the speed of travel, it doesn't really lend itself towards pedestrians or small retail. So we thought something like this may be a good fit along that curve. And we're able to jump back into the history of Gainesville. So not just trains, but the history of the agriculture, where we came from, where we are today. This is part, but along with that training museum, we may also include transportation, the different modes of transportation that were involved going through downtown, that deliveries were made, horses and carriages. And she was looking at the Star Garage in particular. right there off of Bowden Plaza, has an opportunity to possibly open that space up into a large warehouse type space and have a farmer's market that's actually covered, protected from the elements. But yet the doors are open and inviting. And in that also you could have set down older autos from the past. On the left, we have what used to be the center of downtown. It was the tallest building. It had open space, all around it. It was majestic. It really was the base and heart of downtown. Right now, we have the tower. It's left, but it's not nearly as majestic. And it's not really, when we think of downtown, it's not the image that we portray. Although the image on the left is the history of where we came from. We do have to from also.
I would do project real quick. As you can note, you can't even really see that clock tower because of all the trees. So one of the things that we would also hope to incorporate in the green space initiative is working with the city in terms of how we would reconstruct trees essentially. So we can actually see and visualize different signs, different things we'd like to implement. Because as we all know, Gainesville has a very strict relationship with having tree arteries, understandably. But if you can't see something, you can't really, leverage it or engage with it.
Currently, if you're new to town and you're driving down University Avenue, you really don't have a sense that you're in the heart of downtown, that you just through the downtown. There's no main city plaza. Right now, it's covered with trees. The panels aren't even working. And from the road, you can't even really hardly see the city hall building. One possibility would be to create a new tower that kind of harkens back to the original, that's elevated, and then have another matching tower on the opposite side that is more of a media. It's a current modern interpretation of the other tower from where we've been and where we are now. That media tower could have, could be banners on it, it could be on a billboard, could be a number of things that really just announces that this is the center of Gainesville. This is the center of downtown. And of course, it can harken back to Bowden Plaza. And also with some of the trees cleared away, it would really announce city importance of that space as the center of downtown.
So another step that we wanted to look at was to create a center for our student resident. And so to provide inclusivity for all residents, it is important to include our citizens who have helped build the city of Gainesville. And so it's important to provide a space where they can foster friendship, they can play games, have seminars, workshops, and have physical activities to help maintain a healthy life. This is also really important just for overall social benefits and everything as well. And really ensuring that our different age groups are represented in our redevelopment.
So we've talked a lot about things, many plans, structure, some of the recommendations we have, some next steps that happen downtown, even implementing the plan. But we really want to hear the community dialogue. We really want to understand all of Gainesville and what they think of their downtown. And so really our question to you is, what is your vision of downtown? What would you like to see downtown? Does it align with what we think? Or do you think you have a different concept? If you do want to see downtown redevelop into sort of the vision that everyone here wants, you can start by having first a downtown. We have to create a vision plan. The best way to do so is through a downtown committee that the city will listen to. The second is really that downtown committee working with the CRA to create a holistic plan, sort of that master plan that we were talking about that addresses everything in downtown and make sure that everyone's included. And then alongside that, design standards are built so that we can preserve the buildings themselves hey, can we maintain that historical character of downtown? But we really want to ask you, what do you think of downtown? What do you want to create in downtown? What atmosphere do you want? And we certainly do those questions.
So we have the microphones and we will turn around and have questions and comments from the audience.
First, thank you so much. It was just fascinating. Just a few thoughts that I would like you to keep in mind. Our buses are like traveling around. And when I see a bus go by, it's black and has a word, like courage. If we encourage anybody that's advertising on a bus to use our artists, that would be a big step forward in there. The other thing, and this may be outside here, but I just heard last week that there was a gentleman in the southeast Gainesville that was supposed to be closed for the and just like we keep that in the back of your mind, it's going to be hard to encourage people to own a business in southeast Gainesville. One of the things with a gentleman that has ordered and it's affecting the water supply. So thank you for coming to get this was fascinating.
Thank you for that. We didn't know Friday. I'm like, myself.
Thank you for that. I did not realize you lived downtown.
We've been on this since 1970. And they were shocked over that, you know, this is a part of the story to eat. There was easier parking, and over the years, it seems like people want to go downtown less because downtown is full of lawyers and the courthouses. The parking is very difficult. There are homeless people don't feel safe down there. There's no shopping anymore. The city seems to want a lot of people to live downtown. We want to have people who have to go to places to buy things and to shop. And that my favorite thing that I saw on the slide up there was the Indian countries market. But something is to be done about it.
We have a question back here.
Yes, I think the plan is wonderful. Whatever you all decide, improvement is great. My fear though is there a plan for the homeless situation?
So that is actually outside of the scope of our research, but one of the stakeholders we would be working with are the local, Grace, you all seem to know. We would be ideally working with them to figure out different ways to kind of navigate that issue because we do understand that is complicated. The unhoused are experiencing issues that are generally outside of their control in some cases. But we want to ensure that we're not displacing anybody. We're also ensuring that, you know, we can encourage everyone. We can encourage people to come and visit. We can encourage our businesses to be safe, happy places for safe, happy people. So we're going to be working with these provisioners essentially to find a way to navigate that. Thank you for your question.
Another thing was, well, we also didn't necessarily directly address the homeless population. There is the St. Francis House, which is located in our district that we propose, and they're really well associated with the homeless population and providing them with food and other supplies that are necessary for them.
Great point, because Grace is located out of downtown and St. Francis is there. So I do think there's been some discussion amongst our class about city services and provisions for that. Yes, good.
The two specific, suggestions that I made. I'm active with the Thelma Walton Center, if you're familiar with that, which is in the Duck Pond, I live in the Duck Pond. And, we have saved the building from destruction, being demolished. And, that was originally a community center, and used by different organizations and so forth, and certainly could serve as a senior center, you know, and I'm looking forward to that, because I'm a senior, and I live right next to it. So, compared, in addition to the Thelma Walton Center specifically, the Thelma Walton Center is just across University, located the Duck Pond, just across University from the Matheson Museum. And the Sweetwater Creek branch goes right through all of that. And there have been initiatives about, you know, Greenway that encompasses that route that takes you along the Sweetwater down to downtown or whatever, and goes through a number of historic districts. And another thing that I suggest is that farmers markets are very nice. We have them, I can walk to the river. But I'm not going to go shopping. If you want to have people living in the area, I suggest that some effort is made to have something like a Whole Foods market, you know, something that's smaller than Publix, something that has some, you know, something special to it, which downtown can have, that really serves the purpose of what you're going to go shop for. And so farmers markets are very nice, and you can do them inside, and that is wonderful too. But I suggest some real market there as well. And one other thing that is, I'm sorry, I'm very involved in this right now. But it's that the university now coming together, you're all at the university. And I always think that the university as the major business, the major moneymaker, you know, if they are personally interested in downtown being a menu for them, you know, that the way it's developing, I'm very thrilled to see, you know, university moving closer to our historic district. But I want to see the university investing in something such as trolleys so that we can show people all the areas, historic areas all around us. And, you know, so that the university looking at this as being something good for them, would be investing in actually, we need that, and that's our big business.
I completely agree, but just to touch on the issue that would kind of, I guess, stymie the economic impact that we're looking for. If we get US involved with some of the buildings, like if we buy buildings, that would impact on the taxing, our taxes for the buildings, and then because US doesn't have to pay taxes, so that would go back into our community, unfortunately. But I think maybe doing something with them as a stakeholder and merging with the trolley system, I think would be cool.
We have talked about the different universities across the South being in their downtowns. Tulane is buying in downtown New Orleans, SCAD and Savannah. So a lot of universities are looking at that, and I think the discussion about tax base is really important.
Really another thing, we're talking about how downtown really been a shopping center for a very long time. There used to be a lot of stores there that you can go and shop. And then talking about sort of having a supermarket, when we were discussing sort of looking at the economic centers of Gainesville, we thought that downtown was a very special thing of it being sort of a catalyst of small businesses. The lot sizes are pretty small. The buildings that we have, the historic buildings, are actually pretty small spaces for retail. And we think that instead of having maybe a Whole Foods, it would be great if we had a supermarket that would come sort of buy something for Gainesville and that work with farmers all around rather than having a super chain. We think it has the character of the downtown. It really inspires the community to come together and start businesses. Sort of how it was in the 70s and 50s.
We've got a question for you.
Yeah, I've been on many committees, and I don't live here, and I live in Micanopy, outside of Micanopy. And so I've been all the committees have, they just looked and then they disbanded because they didn't come up with the answers. But I wanted to point out to you that in planning, you have two different groups of people you're planning for. You have the people that you're trying to draw into living in that area. And that's one group, and that's wonderful, and that's one problem. But you have the other group of people that don't live there, that are not going to move in to that area, and I'm assuming that you want to draw them in. And one of the things he said, and I was on a committee with the university, and I'm going to say this, the three most important things are parking, parking, and parking. And you have to get a way to bring the people in. Also, I want to remind you that if you bring people in, you have to have places for these outside people to sit and rest. Don't forget them, don't do the Disney thing where, you know, you have to buy and go into a thing. You want little areas with benches and places that you can sit and maybe some water available. So two different problems, two different groups of people.
Okay, great.
I'm wondering if your group, your plan has standards for what kinds of historic buildings should be preserved. Because certainly some don't deserve to be preserved. And I thought about that at the very beginning of your talk, when you had like 4 pictures on the screen, and on the right, there was a building that you said was historic. And then the arrow goes down and shows that it's gone. Now, the building on the left, I think was historic and had been preserved in some way. The one on the right, the implication was that that was a bad thing, that that's gone. But I didn't see anything attractive in that photograph. So are there standards for, I mean, does every historic building need to be preserved? Surely not.
I'll just chime in on one point. There's a lot of urban fabric that has been lost, you know, as you said. And that's sad. And when it comes back, we don't want it to look like the building now next to the different. So we could have guidelines, the city could create guidelines with the Secretary of the Interior standards, as well as asking that the ground 3 floors harken back to that 1900, 1850 era with great detailing, and then newer building materials there on up. Now, I had that picture where we saw the old building and the new. Yeah, that, even though those were old buildings, you could actually require and have the city have those cabinets.
Yeah, I think our comparison to that slide was really trying to see buildings that have nice design. That's usually how we determine if a building is really worthy of preservation. It has a nice design file, of which you have to almost describe exactly why it's historic. There are some buildings that are built in the 80s and are not sort of character, but it's buildings from the late 1800s that do deserve some value, preservation, sort of regulation. And then they usually have all history of that building up until 1970.
I think the last point with that slide is that we've seen way too many demolitions and empty lots sitting there in downtown. That building was 238 West University Avenue. It came down when I was the city historic preservation planner, and that lot's been empty since 2017. So if we can think carefully about demolitions and what's going in, and have a master plan for downtown and be purposeful in what we recognize as significant and what we want to come in. That's really the goal of this. Okay, so thank you all so much for your feedback. We really appreciate it.